There is a reason this message reached you now, and before you move away, listen closely, because something quiet has already started turning in your direction. This was not a small moment. This was not casual talk. Somewhere, in a conversation you did not hear, your name came up in a way no one expected. No setup, no warning, no reason for it to happen in that exact second. And still, it did. The person connected to you, the one who has kept more inside than they ever show, opened up. Not fully at first, just enough for the room to change. Their voice shifted. Their energy changed. The people around them noticed it right away. What began as normal talk suddenly became something deeper, slower, more honest. And that is why you need to stay with this, because what was said about you did not come from habit. It came from a hidden place. A place they have protected for longer than most people know. Don't scroll away, because the surprising part is not only that they spoke about you, it is how carefully they said your name, how the silence before it said almost as much as the words after it, and how even they seemed caught off guard by the truth that was finally starting to come out. Something had been building inside them, quietly, slowly, and once it started speaking, it did not stop easily. What happened next carried weight, real weight. And by the end of that moment, one thing had become impossible to ignore. Your name was no longer just a memory passing through their mind. It had become a feeling they could not hide anymore. At first, the conversation moved like any other. Small topics, easy words, the kind of talk people forget the same day it happens. But then one simple question changed the whole mood. Someone asked about the people who still matter, the ones who stay in your thoughts when the day is over and the noise is gone. There was a pause, a long one, not empty, not awkward, full. The kind of silence that tells the truth before the mouth does. And then your name came forward, slowly, carefully, as if it had been waiting behind closed lips for a long time. The room felt different after that. Even the ones listening could tell this was not a random mention. This had meaning. And what surprised them most was this. They did not talk first about what you did. They spoke about what you make them feel. That changed everything. Because actions can be explained, but feelings are harder to fake. They described the strange way some people leave a mark without trying. How one presence can remain even in absence. How certain thoughts return without being invited. Listen carefully here, because this part matters. They admitted that lately, ordinary moments have been interrupted by things connected to you. A place, a phrase, a sound, a late-night thought. Something small suddenly leads back to your memory. Not in a loud way, in a quiet way, again and again. And the person listening noticed something even more revealing. Every time they spoke about you, something softened in them. Their voice slowed down. Their expression changed. They looked away for a second, like they were searching for words that still felt safe enough to say. That softness was real. It could not be performed. It rose naturally, and once it appeared, everyone in that space understood there was more here than they had first imagined. Then came a sentence that shifted the air in the room. They said they never expected one person to stay in their thoughts for this long. Not because they were trying to sound dramatic, not because they wanted attention, but because the truth had finally reached the point where it was tired of hiding. And once a truth like that slips out, it usually brings other truths with it. They started talking about details, small details, the kind people only remember when something inside them has decided those details matter. A tone in your voice, a certain reply, a moment that looked simple on the outside but stayed untouched in memory. That is important. People do not protect details unless those details carry meaning. Someone asked them why they were saying all this now, after so much silence. Another pause followed, deep, careful. Then came the answer. Sometimes distance makes hidden thoughts louder. That line changed everything because it was true in a way everyone could feel. When life gets noisy, people can bury what they feel. But when the noise fades, what matters starts speaking again. They admitted there had been moments when they almost reached out, moments when they almost said more, moments when they nearly let honesty win earlier. But something stopped them. Not because the feeling was gone, because the timing felt uncertain. because some emotions are easy to carry in private and hard to place into words. Stay with me, because this next part matters more than it first seems. They said your name has felt different lately inside their mind, stronger, clearer, harder to dismiss. That means something has shifted. People do not speak this way unless some quiet line has already been crossed inside them. And once that line is crossed, silence no longer feels as safe as it once did. Not long after that, they revealed something even more telling. There is one memory involving you that keeps returning. One moment, one unfinished piece. They did not explain every detail of it, but the way they held it back made it obvious that it still means a lot. That is how you know it is real. When someone guards a memory carefully, it usually means the memory is still alive. Someone asked if they believe certain people return for a reason. Again, silence. Then a soft answer came. Some connections do not disappear even when life gets busy. That did not sound like a passing thought. It sounded lived, tested by time. They admitted they had tried not to think too deeply before, but lately that has become harder. Something keeps returning, not with noise, with persistence, enough to make them wonder if those thoughts were ever meant to leave at all. And then came one of the biggest changes in the whole conversation. They began to question whether what they once ignored now deserves real attention. That sentence changed the feeling in the room completely, because when someone starts rethinking what they pushed aside, it means the heart has started looking at the truth again. They described you as someone whose impact was understood late, not right away. That happens with meaningful people. Some are noticed fast and forgotten fast. Others are understood slowly and remembered deeply. When they said that, the people listening already knew who they meant. You. Not because they said it loudly, but because your presence had already filled the space between their words. Then one small detail made everything feel even more real. They smiled without noticing it. Not a polite smile, a real one, the kind that appears when memory touches something genuine before the mind can control it. That is not something people create on purpose. It happens when the feeling arrives first. And when that kind of feeling arrives, it usually means there is still more waiting underneath. Before the conversation ended, they said something so quietly it almost slipped past the room. But it stayed with everyone who heard it. Some people enter your life softly, yet remain louder than many who came with noise. That one line said more than a long speech could have. It was not ordinary admiration. It was not empty reflection. It was the kind of honesty that shows up only when someone can no longer pretend certain feelings are small. So understand this clearly. Somewhere you could not see, your name has been carrying unusual weight. Your presence entered a conversation without your knowledge, and what was said about you was deeper and more revealing than anyone expected. But it did not stop there. After that first wave of honesty, something changed around them. The silence that followed did not feel empty. It felt full, like they were still trying to organize thoughts that had waited too long to be spoken. They did not rush into a new subject. They stayed there. That matters, because when someone lingers after the truth comes out, it usually means the truth was larger than they planned. Someone then asked them directly why this still matters now. They could have escaped the question. They could have laughed it off. They could have answered lightly and moved on. But they did not. They said there has been a strange feeling lately they cannot fully explain. Thoughts of you arrive without permission, especially in quiet hours when everything slows down. Not once, not occasionally, again and again. That confession pulled the conversation even deeper because everyone could hear it was not built for effect. It was simply what had been happening inside them, and once they admitted it, the entire tone of the moment changed. They went on to describe how normal parts of life have started linking back to you in unexpected ways. A phrase someone says, a face in a crowd, a place that should mean nothing, a song, a late afternoon silence. Suddenly something turns, and there you are again in their thoughts. And each time it happens, there is a pause inside them. That pause matters. People pause for what touches something real. Then they admitted there were things they never said when they had the chance. Not because the words did not exist, because the timing felt uncertain, and some feelings are much harder to name than people think. Then they said something no one expected. Sometimes silence protects feelings until those feelings become too clear to hide. The room went still. Everyone understood that sentence came from experience, not imagination. When someone asked if they regretted not saying more earlier, they did not answer right away. That hesitation revealed almost everything. Finally, slowly, they admitted there are moments they replay in their head and wonder if certain chances should have been held more carefully. Don't leave now, because this is where it became unforgettable. They mentioned a detail about you that still stays sharp in memory: your calm way of speaking when others expected noise, your ability to leave an impression without trying too hard, a presence that does not ask for attention yet somehow receives it anyway. They said that quality is rare, very rare. Many people are noticed quickly and forgotten quickly, but some are understood slowly and remembered for a very long time. When they said that, they looked away again, like even this much honesty already felt bigger than planned. Then they added something that sounded simple but carried a lot. They recently realized that not everyone can create peace just by being remembered, but thoughts connected to you somehow carry that exact feeling. That was not a casual line. It came from somewhere honest. Then another question came. Do you think you still have something unfinished there? They gave a small smile first, the kind people make when the truth is already known inside them. Then came the answer. Maybe that is why it still feels unfinished. That one word changed the whole shape of the conversation. Unfinished. Because unfinished feelings do not fade easily. They remain alive in quiet places. They admitted there are times they almost reach out in their mind before stopping themselves. Times when your name rises suddenly and they wonder if some connections remain present even when no words are exchanged. That is not ordinary memory. That is emotional presence. And emotional presence does not vanish just because time moves. Then they said something even deeper. There is a difference between forgetting someone and becoming quiet about them. That line landed hard because silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes silence means the feeling became too meaningful to speak carelessly. One of the people listening asked when they first realized this mattered. Their answer came softly. When I noticed even the small things remind me. That tells you everything. Small reminders are powerful because they appear without effort, no search, no intention, just sudden memory arriving on its own. A street, a sentence, a certain hour, a brief stillness, and suddenly your presence appears again. Near the end of that part of the conversation, they said something that no one forgot. Some people stay important even when life becomes crowded. That sentence needed no explanation. Everyone understood it. Importance that survives distraction is real. Importance that remains after time passes is rare. And when they finally stopped speaking for a moment, the silence that followed felt different. Not uncomfortable, not confused. It felt like someone had finally allowed truth to breathe. Even more surprising, after saying all of that, they seemed lighter, as if speaking honestly about you had released something heavy they had been carrying quietly for a long time. And once someone reaches that point, honesty rarely ends in a single moment. After a brief silence, when the topic could have easily moved on, they returned to your name again without anyone asking. That alone carried meaning. When a person circles back to the same subject after it could have already passed, it means the thought was never finished inside them. They leaned forward slightly and spoke more quietly than before, almost as if the next words were meant for themselves, yet everyone still heard them. They admitted that lately there has been a growing feeling that something connected to you has remained unfinished in their heart. They had tried for a long time to tell themselves life had already moved forward, but that confession changed the mood instantly. Unfinished feelings do not return unless they still hold value. And the strongest part was not even what they directly said. It was the details they revealed without realizing it. They began talking about how small memories involving you have stayed unusually clear. Not dramatic scenes, not loud moments, quiet ones. A look, a short sentence. A still moment that seemed ordinary then, but somehow survived time untouched. That matters more than people think, because the heart protects what the mind once underestimated. Someone asked why those memories are coming back so strongly now. The answer came slowly, because some things only become clear after distance. Again, the room went quiet. They admitted there were times they tried to cover those thoughts with distractions, but whenever life became still, the same reflection returned. Your presence had left a deeper mark than they admitted before. That is not simple remembrance. That is recognition arriving late but arriving with force. Then they described you as someone whose energy stayed calm in memory even after life became complicated. Not everyone receives that kind of description. Many names blur over time, many impressions weaken under pressure, but yours, according to them, stayed clear. Clear enough that even now, in recent days, your name still carries the same quiet weight. Someone then asked if they had ever almost sent a message. The answer came through a pause before the words came at all, and that pause said enough on its own. Then they smiled a little and admitted there had been more than one moment when they nearly did, but stopped because they did not know how that honesty would be received. That is important. It means thought had already started moving toward action, even if it never fully arrived. And delayed feelings often grow stronger because they stay unspoken too long. They explained that some of their strongest thoughts show up at unexpected times, late nights, slow mornings, empty afternoons when nothing dramatic is happening, and then suddenly your name appears again as if it belongs at the center of their attention. One listener asked a question that shifted everything again. Do you think this connection ever truly left? The answer came so softly it almost disappeared. No. I think it only became silent. That sentence changed the meaning of the entire conversation. Silence is not disappearance. Silence often means the feeling moved deeper, and when feelings move deeper, they become harder to dismiss. Right after that, they shared another truth. Recently, they heard something small, just a phrase said by someone else, and it instantly brought you back to mind. What surprised them was how fast emotion returned with that memory. That kind of reaction cannot be forced. It happens only when something inside still responds on its own. Then came another line no one forgot. Some people leave quietly, but they do not leave empty space. Everyone knew that sentence was about you, because empty space means absence, but meaningful people leave presence behind even when they are far away. They then started speaking about timing, about how some truths are understood only after enough time has passed for pride, confusion, and fear to become weaker than honesty. That revealed growth. Because honesty usually arrives when someone becomes tired of hiding from what they already know. As the conversation moved closer to its end, the words became fewer, but the meaning became stronger. They looked down for a second and said that some people are remembered because of what happened, but others are remembered because of how they made you feel. That line stayed in the room after they finished. Everyone could sense it. Events fade. Feelings remain. And if your name is tied to feeling rather than memory alone, then something is still living beneath the surface. But even that was not the final layer. After all that had already been said, they offered one more reflection that sounded simple, yet carried the deepest weight of all. They said there are certain people whose presence becomes clearer only after silence creates enough space to understand them properly. Every word came slowly, carefully, as if they had been tested inside the mind before being spoken. Then they added this. Sometimes you only understand the value of someone when ordinary days begin to feel incomplete without the thought of them appearing somewhere unexpectedly. That line changed everything one more time. Ordinary days reveal the truth better than emotional ones, because if someone enters your thoughts during normal hours without invitation, then the connection is not artificial. It is alive in a natural way. They explained that there have been moments lately when they are listening to other people talk, but their own thoughts drift somewhere else entirely, and those drifting thoughts keep going back to memories connected to you. Not forced memories, not chosen on purpose. Just reflections that arrive on their own. A face remembered, a tone remembered, a feeling remembered. When someone asked what exactly stays with them, they hesitated, not because they had no answer, but because some answers become harder when they are completely true. Finally, they said it was the feeling that something important was never fully understood while it was happening. That answer held real depth. Sometimes understanding arrives late. But when it does, it often arrives stronger than before. They admitted there are things they once treated as ordinary that now look different in memory, small moments that seemed simple then but now feel loaded with meaning. That is how hidden truth returns, quietly, without warning. And once it returns, it changes the shape of every old memory around it. They said your name now carries calm and weight at the same time. Not everyone leaves that behind. Some names create noise, some names create distance, but a rare few create stillness and reflection together. According to what they shared, yours is one of those names. Then one listener, half smiling, asked what would happen if your presence appeared in front of them again. There was another silence, longer than before. And then came an answer so soft that everyone leaned in to hear it. I think I would listen more carefully this time. That sentence changed the whole meaning of the conversation. To listen more carefully means they believe something important deserves attention now, maybe attention it did not fully receive before. That is not a small shift. That is a deep one. Then they admitted they have started noticing how rare real impressions have become in life. Many people pass through conversation, but very few remain after the conversation ends. And then they said something unforgettable. Some people leave a sentence behind inside you, even when they are no longer speaking. That was about you. It described impact that survives silence. And impact that survives silence is hard to dismiss. They went one step further and said maybe some connections are never loud because they were not meant to be obvious right away. Some arrive quietly and only later reveal how deeply they settled. No one interrupted that thought. No one laughed. The room understood they were hearing a truth that had taken a long time to form. And before everything finally closed, they said one last thing that sounded like a conclusion reached only recently. Not every important person arrives with noise. Some become important because they remain impossible to forget. After that, they fell quiet again. But this time the silence no longer carried confusion. It carried acceptance. So now take this in carefully. Your name did not enter that conversation by accident. Your presence was not spoken about lightly. What came out of them came from a place deeper than ordinary thought, a place that has been holding unfinished understanding, returning memories, and quiet emotional clarity for longer than anyone knew. And the truth is, once something like that begins to speak, it usually does not return to sleep so easily. After the conversation ended, the words may have stopped, but thoughts like those do not end when the room goes silent. They continue afterward, in private moments, in the pause before sleep, in that strange second when the mind goes still and the heart says what the mouth could not say earlier. That is why this matters. It is not just that they remembered you. It is not just that they mentioned your name. It is that they gave your name emotion, weight, memory, softness, and unfinished meaning all in the same breath. That does not happen for everyone. It happens when a person has tried to stay quiet about something for a long time and finally realizes the silence is no longer stronger than the feeling. And if you have stayed with me this far, then hear this last part clearly. Something has shifted, not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. The space around your name inside them has changed. What was once pushed down is now rising. What was once ignored is now being examined. What was once kept safe behind silence has started finding its voice. So do not dismiss this as small. Do not rush past it. Because sometimes the biggest changes begin exactly like this, with one honest conversation, one unexpected confession, one quiet sentence that opens a door the heart had kept closed for too long. And once that door starts opening, more truth usually follows. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in the way anyone expects, but slowly, clearly, inevitably. Because truth once spoken has a way of repeating itself until it is fully understood.